welcome to The Burnout, the show where we tackle the problems in education one solution at a time. I'm your host, Kendria Johnson, and we look forward to helping you beat the burnout. Welcome to another episode of The Burnout. I am your host, Miss Kendria Johnson. I am your teacher coach. I make good teachers great by bringing them out of burnout back into a balanced life. And on today's episode, I have a young lady that I kind of hunted her down. I kind of stalked her a little bit on LinkedIn. I read her bio, I read her profile, and I was like, I would really like this young lady to be on my show so I can ask her some questions about psychology and psychotherapy and things that she does. And her name is Doctor. She's a professor at a university. She's going to tell you more about that. But she is a doctor. Her name is DrBlessing Ntamu. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Welcome to the show. Tell us about who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it, and how you show up in the world.
Okay, so first and foremost, my first love will be teaching. So I teach in the higher education sector at the moment. I've been teaching for about 2 decades and a half, because the first time I actually entered the classroom was when I was about 15 years old, after high school. And I did that for fun, but I was teaching then in primary education at the primary level. But then after my PhD, I joined the university, and that's almost a decade now. So I teach educational psychology, but then I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. So I do private psychotherapy practice, and that's also, I'm very passionate about that, because it's just amazing to see how you can use your expertise to transform lives, and, through the help of God, I'm a Christian. It's more like you're performing magic with individuals. They come into you broken, out of sorts, and, after a few sessions, you see them coming back together bit by bit, and that's exciting for me. And besides that, I also do some humanitarian work. I have an NGO. I'm the chief of party, of the NGO. What we do there is just development of women and the girl child, so educational development, skills empowerment, and all of that. And we also advocate for the rights of women and the girl child. So that's it. And then, like I said to you earlier on, during the pandemic, I started a YouTube channel. It's called the Psychologist NG, the Psychologist in Nigeria. So I do that, I have the time I upload videos that basically psychology based, discussing general issues of life, from the psychological point of view. And then occasionally I throw in some music, because I love music, and my family is a music family. So I throw in music, and then I'm an author too. Of 1 or 2 books out there. So that's pretty much about what I do.
Wonderful. See there, you see why I looked at if you've been in my audience and anybody who knows me, you can see clearly we have some of the same agendas. Excuse me. Especially the part about when you're talking about educating girls. One of the reasons why I love teaching in the Middle East is because we have gender segregated classrooms. And one of the things I used to say 10 years ago before I came here was, I wish I could teach just girls, because girls and boys, unfortunately, they learn a little differently. And I wish I could separate them, but we're in the States, they don't do that. But over here, voila.
Okay.
So I want you to talk about some of the challenges. I just spoke just a little bit about one of the challenges I used to have in the States and when I moved over here. But talk about challenges you see in education. It could be higher education. It could be something you see in the lower grades, or something maybe you notice with your own children. Talk about some of the challenges that you have seen over your years of teaching.
Okay, so for me, I think one of the biggest challenges that the educational sector is facing at the moment is a lack of value education. Education has got to be holistic. So you're educating the cognitive, the intellectual aspects of the individual, and then the psychomotor, and then the affective domain, talking about value education. And that part there seems to be a decline in emphasis on value education over time. So it's more like we're just focusing on the intellectual aspect, of the child. And then it looks like we're turning robots out of our educational system at this moment, because they come out, they're intelligent, they have skills, but sometimes they apply these skills negatively. So you can see a young man, he knows exactly how to beat the security apparatus infrastructure in a place and it goes down, what does it do? It takes a gun and it begins to kill innocent
Unfortunately.
children.
Yeah.
Like, where is the value for humanity?
Yeah.
And then there's also a lot of system right now.
Yeah.
And right now it's running all the way from the primary, level, all the way to higher education. Actually, my thesis was on educational malpractice, using rational emotive behavioral therapy to treat educational malpractice behavior. And in the course of my research, we found out that it's not just the students. The parents aid them. They finance these malpractices. The teachers aid them. The regulatory bodies of examinations, they're all in it. And it's so widespread. It's like a tanker woman is destroying the educational system. But you begin to ask yourself, why is this?
Right.
It's as a result of corruption. The educational sector is poorly funded. After post-COVID-19, UNESCO came up with a recommendation that between 15 to 20% of the public budget should be used for education. That's not the case. In Nigeria, we are still budgeting below 10% for education. So there's poor funding of the educational sector. The teachers, the professors are poorly paid.
Yeah.
And they're underpaid and they have to survive. The inflation rate in Nigeria right now is sky breaking. It's terrible, and so how do you survive? As a university professor, you don't want to know what I earn. So that's why you can see that you have to put, you get your hands dirty here, there, and everywhere so that you can live a good life. Because we're going to focus on the salary alone. You can do much. And then you talk about funding grants for research grants. It's not easy to access those locally. Thankfully, sometimes you get to apply internationally and you get some grants coming. So because of this poor funding of educational system, sometimes you find out that when the administrators make policies, their motivation is different. So the motivation is not to ensure that we have good products from the educational system or to promote education. Sometimes it is to generate IGR from the universities. So some of these policies put a lot of pressure on the system. For instance, I'm asking myself, the infrastructure is not there. So for a session, we admit so many students, more than our infrastructure can carry. So in some of my classes, I get to teach up to 400 students. Can you even beat that? So there's a lot of strain on the professor, there's strain on the students, and then the level at which they come to. But let's just talk about this stress and strain in the educational system. Now, knowledge from neuroscience helps us to understand that once the stress response is activated, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part of our brain that does all of the critical thinking, all of the planning and decision making, has to shut down or function at less than 50% capacity. Now, so when your educational system is so fraught with stress, how do you expect these individuals to excel academically? They can't excel because stress will inhibit learning. And when that happens, they have to turn to other methods to pass. So they have to turn to, either paying the lecturers, either with their resources, or, sometimes they have to compromise their bodies. It's a terrible situation. And these lecturers are poorly paid. So if they don't have very strong values, they have to compromise. So there's a lot going on in the system that is not really good for the system. And then all of this, when we talk about corruption and people who will compromise because they have poor values. So I think it all boils down to value education and value reorientation. I don't know if the Gen Zs now, the younger generation, have come to a point where they don't even understand that examination malpractice is wrong, is a criminal offense. So when they find this professor who is standing up for the right, who is saying you have to learn, you came here to learn, not just to get a certificate, because right now the certificate is valued higher than the knowledge. We are not here to get knowledge.
Right.
We are here to acquire a certificate. So when you're telling them you have to learn, you have to do your assignments, you have to do this and that, they look at you strangely, like you're the wicked person. And I don't think this phenomenon is limited to Nigeria.
It is not.
Because I'm out there on Upwork, and I see so many students coming to offer money to have you do their thesis, write their thesis, have you do their assignments. I'm like, what is going on? So the students don't get to do the assignments themselves. They don't write their thesis anymore. Some of them, they get pay people to do that.
Yeah,
so
they have that. They have AI now
that
does it. That's terrible. They have AI that can do it for them now.
I mean, and then when there's no AI, when they don't want to use AI or don't even know how, then they turn to pay other people who will do it for them, So it's a bad situation, actually. There's a lot that needs to be done. Okay, I think I'll stop there for now.
No, I was gonna let you go. I'm making notes And I was going to let you go, Dr. Blessing.
Okay.
It was fine with me because you said you hit some
Okay.
things on the nail, and this is why I did the show. And this is why I called you because I want different perspectives from different people, different, facets of the world. Because I want to be clear on two things that she said. The corruption. The corruption doesn't just because we have a government system in the states doesn't mean that there's not corruption. Because I've seen it on higher levels and lower levels. One of the things you spoke about and that I wanted to reiterate was the education of the value of education. Now, I have been a proponent of education because I have a degree. I was the first one in my family to go to college. However, college is not for everyone. And as a school teacher, when I say that, it upsets people, but that's too bad because college is not for everyone. However,
That's exactly what
knowledge
I
is
say
for
to
everyone.
my students. Sorry.
But
Yeah.
knowledge is for everyone because even if you do hair, braids, like I need somebody to braid this right here. Even if you do hair or braids, you have to learn that skill from someone. So I don't, and when you said the part where there people are basically circumventing the system, they're trying to figure out ways to not get knowledge and just get the paper. That's going to hurt them in the long run because in the end, knowledge is going to win out. I don't want to go
Yeah.
to the doctor that only has, a certificate. I want to go to the doctor that has a doctorate. I want the girl that's been doing that has more experience doing my hair. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether or not she has a certificate or not. It just matters how much experience and knowledge they actually have. Now,
Yeah.
leading into my last question, because my podcast is quick, fast, and we try to get right to the
Yeah.
point. Leading to the question, you've already kind of started talking about what things you could change, would change if you could. But the second part of my
Yeah.
question is because of you educate girls. I don't even know if it's an African. I'm gonna mess this up because I don't know if it's an African proverb or just a proverb that says if you educate the man, you educate the boy, you educate the man. If you educate the girl, you educate a household because
Yeah.
the female is going to educate everybody in her household and the generations after that. So
Absolutely.
I absolutely agree with pushing the education of girls. Not that boys need to be left out, but the education of girls is crucial to the world we're going to, with the world we're leading into. But if you had a magic wand, Dr. Blessing, if you had a magic wand, you had all the money at your disposal, and you could actually change some things. Talk about what some of some infrastructure things that you would change. Talk about some ways you would get rid of some corruption, or maybe pay your teachers or do something to change the system if you could, if you just had a magic wand?
Yeah, because I would start with the public schools. You find out the public schools have a lot to offer, but the infrastructure that chases away the people from bringing their children. And so we go to the private schools, and the focus of the private schools is actually money making. They are business owners, so they still don't give us what we want. So I will invest into the public schools. You can imagine when I did my research, I mentioned about that was like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
I noticed that most of the secondary schools that I used for the research didn't have laboratories. They didn't have school libraries. And so how do you go to a school that doesn't have laboratories and doesn't have libraries? And yes, you have students studying science. So I'll start by building laboratories and then libraries in all of this. And then there's, like I told you, there's a lot. The classrooms are not conducive for learning, poor ventilation, poor lighting, and all of these. And so there's so much stress. So I would try to ensure that we have proper infrastructure on ground. And then the teachers just have to be properly paid. The professors, they have to be properly paid because that's what is motivating corruption. Let me give you an instance. Now you have regulatory bodies, they send people to come do accreditation the university to ensure that everything is in place. By the time they come to the educational system, they meet with the head administrator, money exchanges hands, and they give a good report of the university. And the problem is still there where it is. So if we have the education system properly funded, we have these administrators properly paid and comfortable, and they had their values in place. They would not exchange money for the future of our children. They will ensure that the right thing is done. So we need to pay the professors well. We need to invest more into education. For instance, let's start with budgeting. In Nigeria, for instance, the cost of governance is so much higher than the cost of education. What are they paying them for? The senators earn millions of naira, and then they are housing another million. So we need to, appropriate the funds properly. Let education get enough funding, and you see things begin to change. So we need that, and then we need value reorientation because, like I told you, the current generation don't even know what is right and what is wrong. So we need to change the value system, and that will have to do with some amendments in the curriculum. For instance, like moral education was taken off the school curriculum.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
So we need to return moral education into the curriculum and ensure that these children are getting the education, that their value system is also molded whilst you mold the intellect. Otherwise, they'll use the knowledge that they acquire to destroy the rest of us. Imagine, that the what do you call them now? Those people making nuclear weapons and all of that. They'll be more cautious if they value human existence. Look what is going on in Russia now and in Ukraine. So, when we value human lives, when we are taught to value human lives, we treat them differently. You will never be able to understand why someone will open fire on innocent children that have done nothing to you. So we need to begin to fix the system, first by ensuring proper funding, returning value education and emphasizing value education. I think that's somewhere to start. Ensure proper infrastructure and make the learning environment as conducive as possible. Because when it is conducive, and then they can learn better. And once there's stress in the system, learning is impaired. So that's where I will start from. And then talking about the girl child education, and then neglecting in Africa, the boys are given preference when it comes to education.
Of course.
So in homes that cannot have education for all the children, they say to the boy child, you go first. The girl's going to get married out and she's no longer going to be a part of our family. So let's start with the boys. So we need to get the girl child on board. I spoke to you about Muslim communities that would not even let the children go to school at all. And I told you, together with a company known as eHair from the UK, we are partnering to bring education to them through games, both electronic games and physical games that are structured to develop them cognitively. So that's the bit we're doing, and we hope that someday we can get to the position of better influence where we can change policies, we can ensure that the right thing is done in the educational system.
I agree. And if you can't hear that, Dr. Blessing, that's my audience saying yes, yes, yes. Because even though you're in another country, you're speaking about corruption in another country, I promise you, there is someone in the UAE, someone in the USA, someone in Canada, someone all over. Because what I've learned as being a global educator that I am, is that some of the problems that we just think are in our area are not.
Neuroscience has discovered is that even though we want to talk about different learning styles, we don't want to focus on that because if we use the new techniques that neuroscience has developed from our experience and from research, it benefits everyone in spite of whatever learning styles you come up with. So just make the system good and working for everyone.
Right, accessible to everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, accessible to everyone. Yeah.
So before we call out, before we let you go, because I know you're a busy woman, I know you have things to do. Tell us about where your books are, what the names of your books are. Tell us about what projects you have in your YouTube channel, and I'll put all of that information on this episode.
Okay, and so one of my books is called The Unique Teenager. The Unique Teenager, and it's a book on adolescent reproductive health, premarital sex education, and some general health education. I'm sure that's the one the audience will love. It's accessible on YouTube, The Unique Teenager, by DrBlessing and Ntamu. And then I have that's it. And then I have one that's religiously inclined. It's a Bible study guide. Okay, and so another one, two of them actually are Bible study guides. Okay, and then I have my YouTube channel, and that one is called The Psychologist NG. And if you search for me with The Psychologist NG, The Psychologist NG, you'll find me on YouTube and on Instagram and on Facebook with The Psychologist NG. And this is THE, The Psychologist NG. And on Twitter, it's The Psychologist NG. So those are my handles, and we do psychology on the YouTube channel. We also have a lot of fun, whatever interesting stories I find, I put them on there. And there's a lot of music and art as well.
I heard, you mentioned music, that your kids are on there and they love music. I can't wait for them to see it. I'm going to make sure that they get a copy of all of those things. Well, that's going to do it for us this evening for me.
Thank you so much.
Evening for me. So that's going to do it for us. I want to thank you for coming on, Dr. Blessings. I know we had some technical difficulties and some things went on, but we made it happen. I appreciate that. See what happens with two.
Thank you so much. And I absolutely enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes.
It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, on the Burnout, we help teachers rejuvenate their passion and regain their power. That's going to do it for us. See you till next time. Till next time.
Yeah.